Oh my gosh, Marshall. Marshall. So we all know Jeffrey, we all know Phoenix, Marshall, Bass Jack, Mike Gilbert, a whole slew of trophy fishermen, Jared Swafford, who are catching very, very large caliber fish. And, you know, Bass Jack does it with his immortal trout. Mike obviously does it with the Hinkle trout and some other baits. Jeff can catch them on the 250 or the Hinkle trout or Hinkle shad. Phoenix with the OG 250, Marshall with the Mother Chaser, the Ghost, the K9. You know, all of these guys catch gigantic fish, and they all catch them on hard baits too, but they also catch a lot of big fish on soft baits. And I kind of have some key things that I wrote down that I've been thinking about for the last couple weeks that kind of go in my mind when I think, why do I think that a giant largemouth bass, or smallmouth bass in this case, why do I think a giant bass is going to eat my soft bait over a hard bait? And so I've got, like I said, a couple reasons, and obviously you guys in the comments can share with what you guys think, kind of rebuttal what I have to say, or compare and contrast your guys' opinions with mine. Obviously, like I said, this is all opinion based. This isn't hardcore facts. Like I said, you see those guys. Mike caught the 17 on a Hinkle trout, so who's to say that any of this stuff is actually real? But this just is kind of what I have thought in my mind, what I've put together, and kind of what has made sense in my experiences. So first off, I'm going to have to look at my list because I did write a handful of reasons. So the first reason is being the swim. The swim is super natural, you know, whereas, what do we got here? Like the KGB Legend Reborn, if I can unhook it. This obviously is a glide bait. We all know what a glide bait does. It does that super, well, some do that super slow S wave, some do the super fast S swim. So obviously that's what all the glide baits do. And not saying that that is not a natural pattern, but I feel like you don't see many fish swimming in an S formation, shooting back and forth, going really fast or going really slow. It just kind of is a thing that I think the bass see, and it looks good to them. So they come up and eat it. They come out and check out the bait, whatever else it may be. Outside of that, this bait obviously is the shape of a fish. Yes, we have that. The other thing that I have written down that kind of goes hand in hand with the swim is this bait, when a fish comes up, if a fish comes up and T-bones it, that is a hard, resin is a hard material. ABS plastic is a hard material. You know, that would be like if you bit into a chicken wing and you got a straight bone. You'd take it out of your mouth right away. What the heck? There's no meat on that bone. I don't want to eat that. Or a steak or whatever else it may be. I think a bass is kind of the same thing as that. If they come and T-bone this thing and they feel how hard it is, they're going to spit it off and kind of turn off and go eat something else or go swim away. And you get that with a lot of cast catches, outdoor, or Uncle Larry Outdoor, sorry, I blanked on the name there. They've got videos, and you can see it if you fish clear water too. A bass will come up and hit this bait, and it kind of like processes for a second, and then you can set the hook, and that fish will obviously start to swim away with the hook in its face. But those fish T-bone it, and they kind of like go to turn and almost like spit it out sometimes. And if you're fast enough, you can obviously set the hook in there. Those fish don't sit on that bait and chew it. If they T-bone it and they miss a hook, you're going to sweep them and get the hook. But I feel like if a soft bait, sorry, we'll take the 68-inch Hud, very small soft bait. If a fish comes up and T-bones it on the back of the tail like that, it's soft, you know, it feels like, in this case, a trout. You know, kind of gum it. And I've talked about it on the show, bomb a cast out there, you're slowly reeling it. And you can do it even with a jig too, or a Kitech. You're slowly reeling it. You can feel it, that thump, and then you can kind of feel it, kind of mouth it and chew it. And then you reel down, and you can really feel that fish starting to move with the bait, so you reel down even more, and then you set the hook. I think that a soft bait is a lot more realistic material for them to eat. You know, they can crunch on it, it feels soft, it mends like a real fish. Whereas, like I said, where the glide baits, they take a bite out of it, it's like us eating a chicken wing, you know. Oh, that's bone, that doesn't feel real, that doesn't feel like something I want to eat. Whereas if you bite into a big old chicken wing that's got a bunch of meat on it, and you kind of, oh yeah, that's what I want. And I just feel like a fish takes a bite out of a soft bait, and they're more keen to really try to choke that bait down. There's nothing offset about it. They feel it and they're like, yeah, that feels like the other 50 trout I've eaten in the last 4 months. And then they get down to the hook, and that's kind of where maybe it starts to get a little bit different for them because they feel that hook on there. But again, if you're fishing a soft bait, I feel like that fish has a longer chance to hold on that bait. It's going to give you that much more time to hoax that fish into getting down to the hook, whereas a soft bait, they're going to hit it, and if they didn't get the hook, they're usually going to turn around and spit it. Soft bait, I feel like you just have that much more of a chance to really connect with the fish and get a good hook set, where you don't always have that with the hard baits. Kind of going hand in hand with what I was just saying, we'll use the Fish Everything hater for this one. Let me take this paper clip off this 8-inch hide. All right, you're a fish. You're coming up to eat this bait. This bait, I'm swimming through the water column, swimming it back up to the paddle board. You come up to this bait, you come up and you're about to eat it. Okay, yes, you can see the hook. The hook is very noticeable, but it's not a billboard. It's not saying, hey, this thing is not real. You're going to eat this thing and you're going to get plucked out of the air, plucked out of the water. It's kind of low-key compared to what you would see coming to eat this bait right here. You're coming up to eat this bait on the side profile. What do you see? Well, I see two huge, quotation mark, huge treble hooks hanging down there. Not necessarily something that's advertising, come eat me, I'm a real fish. Whereas this, you have this hook sitting up a half an inch, we'll say, sticking up. It's a single jig hook. You know, it could pass. Whereas this, I feel like they're just maybe a little more cautious of eating this. And this is not even to say you get the same thing with the like the 8-inch mag draft. I mean, that's a pretty big hook. It is exposed a little bit. It is hidden a little bit as well. But that hook is still sitting out quite a bit. That's why I don't really stray to fishing the mag drafts as much unless I make this hook a little bit smaller, switch it out with a smaller size. It's a pretty big hook, but it still is tucked in. It's flush with the body. This hardware kind of is annoying because it's so blatantly obvious, in my opinion. It kind of goes hand in hand with the hard baits. But when you're fishing a bait like the Tyrant, where this doesn't have the bubble in it or anything, Mike talks about it in his videos where he melts everything down, he melts that wire harness down, and all you have is just those two little prongs sticking up.
Nice and tight. And we're talking about millimeters of difference in the wires, but to me, it makes a difference. Now it's just that much more stealthy. Now you can do that how you prefer. Like, when I really get into it, I'm gonna take my little hot knife that I always have on the water with me. I'm gonna heat this up, and then I'm just gonna reseal that belly cavity. You can hear it sizzling. Hold it closed for a second.
So we go from a bait where that jig hook is sticking up a half inch to where this treble hook is now sticking up, well, this is a terrible viewpoint of it, but where that treble hook is sticking up maybe an eighth, maybe shy of a quarter inch shy sticking up. You can get away with being so much more stealthier with soft baits. And in the end, does that really make a difference? I don't know. But if you're fishing heavily pressured water, if a fish sees these hooks dangling from this bait and they've seen a 500 jerk baits and 6,000 crankbaits in its lifetime, and maybe even a couple glide baits, that might be just enough of an off put, whereas the Hud or the Tyrant or any other soft bait with a low exposed hook point may be the selling point for that fish to come up and eat and kind of suck on that bait like we were just talking about, and then commit to fully eating it and getting a good hook set out of it. I don't know, just my opinion. Looking at a bait, you can kind of look and see, is a fish going to eat this? If I was a fish, would I eat this? I don't know. Just this is a very blatantly cautious thing that I don't know many fish would come up and eat of a trophy class if they're super heavily pressured. Look at that. This next one, crank downs, it kind of relates to, and certain glide baits as well. So we're gonna get intimate here. I'm gonna hold the bait up to the microphone. You guys are just gonna listen. We're not gonna talk. We're just gonna listen and see what this bait sounds like. All right, that bait's not quiet. This is a very old bait. This is like a 6 or 7 year old bait. It's It's got rust in the joints, so it's obviously got a little bit more squeak than some other baits do. But I was always on the team of if a fish can hear my bait, it's going to come up and eat my bait. Yes, that's the case, I think. I think if a fish can pick it up with its lateral line, it's going to be intrigued. It might come check it out, or it might be scared. If a big fish has been around a long time, it's gotten lipless jerkbait or lipless crankbaits ripped past it where it's brrr, brrr, where people are yo-yoing it. It's had jerkbaits with ball bearings rattling around in it. You know, it's had Nico rigs, or maybe not Nico rigs, but it's had baits with like jigs with rattles in it and that sort of thing. So I think bait fish don't really make noise unless you ask Kevin Van Dam and his hydro wave. But I digress. This is a very, very loud bait. This is also kind of a loud bait. It's got a click to it when it hits the side, and I talk about it in the podcast. If you guys use sonar or fish baits, or even if you're in the pool, put your ears under the water and like crack your fingers, or put your ear next to the bottom of the boat and rip this bait across, or turn your sonar on. Stuff is loud underwater. It gets amplified underwater. Those little clicks from the sonar are very loud underwater. Same with these. If you're ripping these, you can hear these things clacking underwater. I don't hear very many bait fish do that. Not saying that it's necessarily the deal breaker for giant bass to eat, but I feel like that scares a lot of fish. I mean, how many times have you seen a fish, you've casted to it, and you start to work your bait, and maybe it's kind of a loud bait, or maybe it makes some sort of noise that's not natural, and that fish turns around, boom, is gone. Whereas, you know, with the soft baits, you don't get that. The soft baits are quiet outside of maybe the dweller bouncing on rocks and stuff with the lead beast hook. But this stuff is quiet. This doesn't have any moving parts, any mechanical sounds to it. It's the tail just moving the water. We have a 316 soft bait here. Another boot tail bait that has no mechanical sounds to it. This is a line through. It doesn't make any noise. It's not mechanical. It's not an unnatural sound. It's literally just moving the water. Sometimes if they have a hard bottom, like if the harness goes kind of underneath the chin or on the belly, and that kind of clicks across rocks and stuff, if you're bottom bouncing it, yes, that's going to make noise. Who's to say it makes a difference? Marshall and I have talked about this before, but still, that little clicking noise is a lot more natural and a lot less off-putting than a crank down or a glide bait or, you know, something with rattles on it. This stuff is very, very natural. It doesn't make too much sounds. I haven't heard many bait fish letting out sounds when they're swimming through the water. So when this thing kind of swims across a big bass, and a bass sees it and they're watching it, you know, they might not come out for it. Who knows? But they're seeing it, and it's nothing out of the ordinary. They don't. If you guys have seen big fish like set up under rocks or log jams or docks, if you whip something past them and you reel it, I mean, I've seen fish literally back in deeper into cover as if something's going to come out and grab it. Where if you fish a bait that's quiet, supernatural, a Kitech or a Senko or something, that fish, you can see its fins kind of start to go a little crazy, and it might poke out of the cover a little bit, just enough to expose itself. That is like direct fish language on what they're intrigued with and kind of what they're kind of not necessarily scared, but what they're off-put by. Just another thing that I wrote down, soft baits are a lot more natural in the water as far as sound and what they give off. Fish are always going to move water when they swim. That's what soft baits do, but they don't give off the sound that hard baits do. So if you're fishing highly pressured water, maybe picking up a quiet soft bait is going to be what makes a big difference for you if they're kind of hit or miss on the hard baits.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Dude, I watched that fish shark this thing. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Mr. Knoll. Put me on a nice little Florida bass. That was sick.
And then obviously they're kind of touching on the last thing. There's no there's no limits to how you can fish this thing. You can fish it fast, you can fish it slow. Obviously, some baits are going to blow out and some baits aren't going to swim as good as others in certain scenarios, but you can fish this thing a whole lot more than you can fish this thing, in my opinion. This thing, you can fish fast and slow. That's it. This thing you can fish fast, slow, run it on bottom. You can hop it like a jig. You can bomb it out there, dead stick it. You can bomb it out there, hop it back, let it sit, burn it back in. You can do all sorts of stuff with this thing. And I mean, honestly, you can mod soft baits a gajillion ways. How many times have you guys seen somebody take a Huddleston and Butch Brown rig it, or the Tyrant? I mean, you can do the Tyrant 3 or 4 different ways. There is a lot of ways you can fish a soft bait. You can minimize that hook point like we were talking about earlier. Whereas hard baits, it's kind of how they come. You know, you got the standard bottom hook versions of glide baits and crank downs, and then Roman Made makes the top hook backstabber stuff. So just the customizations you can get with soft baits is also a very big selling point in my opinion. You can just do so much stuff. You can utilize this bait. You can fish it wherever you want. And if I was to really only have one bait on my board at a time, it would probably be a soft bait. More so, it would probably be the Citizen, but it's still a soft bait. Huddleston is a close second. You can just do so much with these baits. You can utilize them in so many different ways and so many styles of fishing and like depths that you're fishing. If you're going out and you have one bait, this would kind of be the go-to because it just covers such a long list of things that you maybe necessarily can't do with one single hard bait. Kind of all the soft baits are relatively similar with what they do, but they're all just such a little bit different. You know, the tails, the heads, the way they're weedless, their hooks. There's there's an umbrella around the soft bait thing, just as there is with the hard bait stuff. But if you have a soft bait, there is a good chance that you're going to be able to trick the biggest fish in your water to eating your bait, in my opinion. And like I said, this is all opinion based. There's no there's no selling point on what is going to make that 10-pounder eat in your lake. But I feel like when you have a soft bait tied on and you are presenting the most natural thing you can present to that fish, I feel like it's hard to not believe that you have the chance to catch the biggest fish in the lake. Hard baits, like I said, there's a lot of drawbacks to them in my opinion, and I think if you can dumb it down to the most simple thing that a bass sees a trout that's not making any sound, doesn't have a care in the world, and it's just swimming on the bottom, swimming in the water column, wherever you're swimming it, that fish doesn't have to think twice. It can go up and it can eat that thing. You know, like we said, it may grab it and it may choke it down and get that hook, and that comes back to you on the angler to be able to kind of feel and know your, know your equipment to know when that fish is getting close down to the hook, or when it's picked up your bait, or when it's just kind of moving your bait. And obviously it's kind of a feel thing. You have to kind of understand what's going on under the water. But when you're fishing a soft bait, I just think you have the possibilities are limitless on what kind of fish you can trick with it. There's a lot of yapping. Who knows? You guys might listen to this and you're gonna say, this guy is the furthest thing from an expert on soft bait fishing, which is true. I broke my PB on the Citizen 7-inch, and I plan on doing it again in the spring on some more soft baits, whether it's the HUD, the Citizen, the Tyrant. There's just no... It's like pick and play. Whatever you want to trick the fish into eating a soft bait, they'll eat the soft bait, in my opinion. I mean, that's why you see guys like Jared Swafford who catch a gajillion fish in one day on the Citizen 6 or the Citizen 7 or the Tyrant 8. Or you see Grady Cod catching a gajillion bass on the Flag 255. I mean, soft baits trick fish big and small, and they trick fish to the point where they don't even have the slightest clue that it's not a real thing. They want to come up and they want to destroy this thing because it is a trout swimming right in front of them, and they know trout are very tasty and good for them to eat. I don't know, guys. Make sure you guys leave your comments and opinions in the comments below. It's wintertime. I get to sit in my house and dwell on small, simple ideas, and then I get to make YouTube videos about it. So, as always, thank you guys for watching. Let me know your opinions in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. But as always, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. We're going to be doing more of these again very, very soon. Maybe if you guys have ideas that you want me to cover, drop those in the comments as well. But again, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope maybe you give some thought of fishing soft baits, whether in the winter or in the spring, to target your PB bass to catch a truly trophy bass on the swim baits, or truly trophy bass on soft baits, because I think that is how that's how guys catch the truly big fish in their lakes. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.